I think it's important for the future of public lands and all the organisms, the plants, the animals that they protect in California, because if we don't have a generation that's in love with nature that comes along, the next generation, then I think these places are going to languish.
Well, one of the things I like to do when I start off on my walk is I talk about using your powers of observations. So I start off with the deer ears. And so we talk about listening and listening from all directions. And then we talk about like walking like a fox really quietly. And then we talk about using their sense of touch on special things that I allow them to touch, like a little raccoon. And lastly, to use their eyes to look in all directions like an owl.
The animal being in love with nature is a good for the individual. I know it is for me, I imagine it is for you, and I think it's a boon to every kid who's in love with nature. It's a source of pleasure and fascination that they can keep with them throughout their entire lives.
Dear Point Lobos, thank you for taking your time to show us everything you could. I liked all the rhyming things.
My favorite part is the sea lions. They were barking with each other. I enjoyed going on a tour with you. I learned that if there is a plant with 3 leaves, it is poison oak.
We're dealing with an issue called nature deficit disorder. So here, we docents can give these kids an absolutely spectacular walk through a very, very beautiful part of the outdoors and let them appreciate what a thrill it is to be outside, to be discovering different habitats, to be talking about the animals that occupy the habitats, to see the flowers, to breathe the fresh air. It is an experience that these children uniformly love and enjoy.
Thank you, Tracy. Christine and I are delighted to talk to you about our Youth Programs Committee and how we've successfully pivoted during 2020. A little history. You saw in the previous video promoting our School Walks program, we have a large group of dedicated docents who have led school walks on a regular basis. We are especially proud of our Title I program that has served low-income schools and 4th grade students in Monterey County for many years. Almost 2,000 Title I students were scheduled to visit the reserve this year, the 2019-2020 school year. Many of our students in Monterey County have never been to Point Lobos State Natural Reserve, or for the ocean for that matter, and the PLF has generously provided funds to pay for the buses that transport them to and from the reserve. Over the years, PLF supported approximately 16,000 students with this program. Now, when they arrive here, small groups of students and a parent chaperone are paired up with a docent school walk leader who leads them on a personalized tour of the reserve. We share the natural and human story and history of the reserve, and with these enthusiastic learners who are often excited about a whale sighting on the horizon or simply a western fence lizard scurrying along the trail. In March of this year, we were in the middle of another successful year of scheduling and leading these school walks when the COVID-19 pandemic forced an immediate shutdown of our program, affecting over 900 low-income students in the 2019-2020 year. With schools closing and our school walks canceled, the Point Lobos Docent School Walks Committee members quickly met to plan out how to continue to serve our students in the interim. We'd like to describe 2 exciting programs that help us stay connected with our students: our Family Voucher Program and our production of Flipgrid videos for teachers and their classrooms. Here's Christine.
Thank you, Jack. Because these guided school walks are no longer possible at this time, we put our heads together, as Jack described, not literally, to plan what we could do next. We approached the Point Lobos Foundation and asked them to fund a family voucher program that would serve our Title I low-income families and schools in Monterey County. This way we would continue to reach our students and, in addition, reach out to their families. The PLF generously supported our proposal, and we are so pleased to announce that the Family Voucher Program has been successfully implemented for 2019-2020. This is how it works. Melissa Gobel, our California State Parks docent coordinator, contacts the participating schools and gives them the following proposal. First, a docent would do a Zoom presentation to the classroom students, and it would be on the natural history of Point Lobos. There would be questions and answers. That's the best part. And the students would learn about Point Lobos during this presentation. Secondly, once this is completed, each student in that classroom receives a family pass to Point Lobos. This is a $10 value pass that allows their families to load up the car, come to Point Lobos, and park for free. In addition, they can apply for a gas card to help defray some of the cost of their travel. Once the family arrives at the kiosk at Point Lobos and hand in their voucher, the park aides give the fourth grade student at that time a button. The button declares that they are a family walk guide, and they can start their job of interpreting for their family through their journey through Point Lobos. In addition, we're working on a Spanish language video that will additionally train those students on how to interact with their families about Point Lobos. This will be available on the YouTube channel. So, as of now, we have 21 participating classrooms who are doing this, and that's about 600 students that we're reaching this year. We hope to have many more. Many thanks to the Point Lobos Foundation for making this all possible and allowing us to continue reaching our students and their families this year. I'm going to share a little story before I hand this over to Jack. A couple of years ago, when I was working at the information station, if you remember, the information station is like an outdoor visitor center at Point Lobos. We have lots of cool things. We have skulls, we have pelts, we have pictures, maps, and other artifacts to share with our visitors. Well, I noticed a multi-generational family standing huddled around the artifacts. In the center was a young woman. There were grandparents, parents, young children of all ages, but they were all listening very carefully to this young woman in Spanish and English interpreting these artifacts for her family. I could understand enough to know that she was pretty good at this. And afterwards I connected with her and asked her how she knew so much about Point Lobos. Well, she said to me, when I was in fourth grade, you know where this is going, I was on a field trip to Point Lobos. Our whole class went on a bus, and we were met by a group of grown-ups at Point Lobos who took us around the reserve. And I said to myself, I wanted to take my family back here and share this with them. Thank you so much, and I'm going to hand it back to Jack now.
Thank you. Our second program involves video production. This summer we were approached by Scott Shepard, our California State Parks K-12 Access Coordinator, who proposed a way to continue distance learning with our students in Monterey County and around the country. Scott asked us as docents to reimagine our school field trips by creating and producing short Point Lobos videos for classroom teachers and their students. Using an online platform called Flipgrid, these videos are housed under a California State Park series and are available to learners around the country. This is how it works. The Flipgrid video with an embedded inquiry question is shared by the classroom teachers, and then students create their own response video to further the investigation. For example, in Vicki Duke's video, Who Ate the Pine Cone, which you're going to soon see, the students learn about the scientific concept of mutualism in the context of pine cones and squirrels in the Monterey pine forest. Then they are prompted to investigate other examples of mutualism in nature. Of course, we jumped at the opportunity. we decided to focus our videos on the very same fourth graders, and using the next generation science standards, we're in the process of producing distance learning videos. 4 of these are now available on Flipgrid and can be accessed by the public on the Point Lobos Interpreter YouTube channel. Another 8 are in production and will soon be available to our students. This has been a steep but exciting learning curve for us as we learn to film and edit our movies. A PLF member has donated a tripod and 2 iographers to mount our iPhones, and the foundation has purchased a microphone for our use to improve the sound quality of our videos. As of now, we have 9 docents helping in this production process. Christine Burko, Jan Cambier, Vicki Duke, Fernanda Elizondo, Kathy Richmond, Eileen Fukunaga, Suzanne Nielsen, Don Blahowiak, and myself. And we hope to enlist more. If you would like to view these videos, you can find them on the Point Lobos Interpreter channel of YouTube, where you'll also find our resident expert interpreter, Daniel Williford, and his amazing port program. Many thanks to Melissa Gobel, our docent coordinator, who's enthusiastically supported our efforts. And a big thank you to the Point Lobos Foundation, who's made it possible to continue our mission to preserve, protect, educate, and interpret for our young learners and their families in this challenging time. Thank you for your outstanding support. Before we take questions, let's take a look at a short video by Docent Vicki.
Hi, I'm Vicki, Docent Vicki, here at Point Lobos State Natural Reserve, located on the central coast of California on the Monterey Bay. I'm standing here today in the Monterey Pine Forest community, looking up a beautiful Monterey pine tree. Did you know that Monterey pines are endemic to this area? That means they're native. They've always been here. And the cool thing about Monterey pines is that they have special arrangement of the pine cones, and I'll show you. I have here on the ground. This was on the ground, I didn't pick it. But see how the pine cones are arranged? They are in a circle, right? So the scientists give the pine tree the name Pinus radiata. So that's pretty cool, huh? Pine cones start off looking like this. Do you know what the function of a pine cone is? Why do you think a tree would spend so much energy making pine cones? Did I hear somebody say seeds? Well, you're absolutely right. Pine cones are the reproductive part of a pine tree. And inside each of these little brackets, there's seeds. You see that? And they're closed up right now, so the seeds are still inside. But as the pine cone matures, it opens up and the seeds can drop down onto the forest floor. And the seeds have the ability to make new pine trees, new seedlings. But you know that there is a critter that lives in this forest that loves pine seeds. Can you guess what critter that is? I'll give you a hint. It's got a big bushy tail. It's got kind of a gray-brown back and a white front, and he lives high up in the treetops. Did you guess squirrel? Well, you're absolutely right. It's California gray squirrel. California gray squirrels love pine seeds. Why do you think they love pine seeds? What do you think they have in them? Well, think about it. Do you like sunflower seeds? Well, it's almost the same type of thing. Sunflower seeds and pine seeds are full of good fats, and it gives the California gray squirrel lots of energy to do what squirrels do. Have you ever seen a squirrel eat a pine cone? It's really funny. They start off with a green pine cone because there's seeds in these cones, all right? There's no seeds in here, they already fell out. So they start off with a pine cone like this, and they have really sharp teeth and just start gnawing on it. Kind of like you and I eat corn on the cob. And before you know it, it looks like this. Wow, it looks like an apple core, right? Can you see that? I'm gonna turn it around so everybody can see that. Wow, so there's no seeds in that, right? And the scales are gone too. There's usually a pile on the ground of scales, and if you're walking in the forest and you see a big pile of scales, you know that the squirrel's been there, right? So they eat the seeds, and sometimes in seasons when they have plenty to eat, they'll go and hoard the extra seeds they can't eat, kind of like hoarding their leftovers. And they go back and they eat them later, or many times they forget about them and they don't eat them. Well, by doing that, it helps the pine tree spread its seeds further out. So the squirrel helps the pine tree by spreading the seeds, and the pine tree helps the squirrel by giving it shelter and food. Pretty cool, right? So that relationship when both benefit is called a mutualistic relationship. So I have this question for you today is, can you think of other things in nature that have a mutualistic relationship? I'm going to leave you with that question, and I thank you for spending time with me today.
Hello, I'm Docent Jack at Point Lobos State Natural Reserve. And today I'd like to tell you about the floating forest. That's the name I give it. It's really not called a floating forest, but I'm just trying to stimulate your curiosity. So first, let's look at a forest that I know you're familiar with, the Monterey pine forest, which can be found along most trails at Point Lobos. And of course, when you're looking at a forest, you're looking at a number of trunks coming up from the ground. Strong trunks that support the tree. And at the base of those trunks, you'll find roots that grow down into the soil, and the roots do two things. One, they anchor the tree so that it doesn't blow over. And two, and very important, they absorb nutrients that go up the tree and feed the tree and become part of the food made by photosynthesis. So, as we go up that trunk, we see that it's covered with bark. The trunk is not very flexible, slightly, but it's pretty stiff and strong. As we go further up the trunk, we see branches. And at the end of the branches, we see the leaves of the pine tree, which are pine needles. And as we go higher, we come to the top of the tree, where the tree extends out and perhaps overlaps or joins other trees that are branching out toward it. And it makes sort of a cover over the forest floor, and we call that a canopy. Now, how does this compare to the floating forest? Well, the floating forest is right behind me here, out on the water, right beyond me here, right beyond the south shore. And that forest is actually the kelp forest. That's the real name. And it's a very strong seaweed that grows very tall in the water and branches out at the surface of the water. Now, down at the base, do we find roots? Well, they look like roots, but they're called holdfasts. And they're like fingers that spread out and attach to a hard, rocky surface. And then up from that, we find the stipe, which is like the trunk. And by the way, the holdfast has one function, and that is to anchor the kelp plant. They do not absorb nutrients. That's a major difference right there. Going further up the stipe of the trunk, we see branches, and off of these branches, we see leaf-like structures, which scientists call blades. And those blades have a little bit of air in them, but at the base of each blade is an air sac, a sac filled with air, which makes the plant buoyant and helps lift the plant toward the surface. Now, the plant's attached down at the bottom, but when you get up to the top, the leaves, the blades, spread out and form a canopy. So that's very similar to the Monterey pine forest. And of course, those leaves are doing photosynthesis, and that's why they need to be near the surface, and the purpose of the air sacs is to hold them up like that. Now, I think you're ready to report back to your teacher, your classmates, and your family about what a floating forest is, what a kelp forest is, and how it differs from a pine forest. So how does it differ from a pine forest? What's the purpose of the air sacs? And finally, your challenge question. If the holdfasts are not absorbing nutrients, how does the kelp plant get its nutrients? And from where does it get its nutrients?